Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Community Chats from Montefiore Nyack Hospital. This is Sandra Arevalo. I'm the Director of Community Health and Wellness. And today we're bringing to you Be Smart About Gun Safety. Yes, we're going to be talking about gun safety. There might be people who keep weapons or guns in their homes, and we just want to make sure that they are safe, especially from children, so that we don't have any tragedies happening. And to talk to this or about this, I'm not an expert or whatsoever, so I'm going to be learning as much as you will be. We have our expert, Nancy Wellman. And thank you, Nancy, for being with us today. And thank you for, speaking up about this important topic and being willing to present it at Community Chat. So thank you for being here. And Nancy, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about you and your organization, please.
Sure. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Sandra, for this opportunity. My name is Nancy Wellman Schwartz. I'm a Rockland County resident. I've been here for over 30 years. My husband and I raised two daughters here, both who graduated from Clarkstown schools. And I'm going to be talking to you today about the BeSMART message, which is about secure storage of firearms. So I am the Rockland County lead for BeSMART. BeSMART is funded by Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund, which is a national volunteer organization that has chapters in every state, and they work to reduce gun violence overall within the country. And I got interested in the BeSMART program after the 2018 Parkland shooting, when Nicholas Cruz walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. He killed 17 people and injured 17 others. And I really felt like I wanted to be part of the solution. And what I like about the BeSMART program is that it's an educational program. It's not political. We talk to everybody, gun owners, non-gun owners. And the primary focus of the presentation is to talk about secure storage and how we can reduce gun violence in our own homes and communities, and how to talk to your children about gun safety and how it should be part of all the safety rules that you give to your children, so they know what to do if they come upon a gun. So I'm going to share my screen.
Please do. And I'm so happy, Nancy, that you're bringing this up, because as you say, this information is for everybody, right? I mean, I might not have guns in my home, or I might not, but maybe my children are gonna go to a home where there are some guns. So it's good for everybody to be aware of this information, that, information is health, I say sometimes. So thank you so much for bringing this. And when I'm looking at your screen, so feel free to get started.
Okay, thank you. So what tragedies happen when firearms are not secured? We're going to be talking about two families who unfortunately were affected by this directly. So on February 28th in 2023 on Staten Island, a 17-year-old boy unintentionally shot and killed his 15-year-old brother. He was playing with a loaded handgun when it discharged, and then the 17-year-old was arrested. So nearly one child gains access to a loaded firearm and unintentionally shoots themselves or someone else every day in America. That's an average of 350 children a year. The victims of shootings by children are most often also children. So 9 in 10 of those wounded or killed in unintentional shootings by children were also under the age of 18. So what you will be seeing throughout this presentation is the impact of what happens when firearms are not secured. So on March 26th, 2024 in Albany, a 3-year-old boy was shot in his home by his 6-year-old brother. The toddler was accidentally shot when his older brother found a handgun in a backpack and did not realize that it was real and loaded. States with secure storage or child access prevention laws had the lowest rates of unintentional child shootings. Rates of unintentional shootings by children were 34% lower in states with laws that hold gun owners accountable compared to states without such laws. So when a tragedy like this happens, the devastation never leaves these families. Not only has a child been hurt or lost forever, but the child that has done the shooting will have to live with this catastrophic event for the rest of their lives. So what can we do as a community to put an end to this violence within our own families and neighborhoods? I would like to introduce the BeSMART program. So BeSMART is a program developed by Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund to bring together parents and all adults concerned about kids, guns, and safety. So Everytown has close to 10 million members from all over the country, with a chapter in every state that's working to reduce gun violence. And what you'll see on all of these slides is the besmartforkids.org web address. This site will have a version of this presentation along with lots of real-time suggestions on how to keep families safe. So before I go into the actual program, I'd like to discuss what the law is in New York State, because not everyone is aware of that. So New York State law requires that firearms are stored safely and securely to prevent access by people who are not permitted to own them. If a child under 18 or someone is prohibited from owning a firearm lives in the home, firearms must be secured. Failure to do so may result in a fine, imprisonment, or both. So the law really talks about 5 categories. First is locking. Firearms must be secured with a gun locking device, cable lock or trigger lock, or locked in a secure container that is fire, impact, and tamper resistant. Unloading. Firearms should be kept unloaded. Separating. Firearms should be kept separate from ammunition. Location. Firearms should be stored in a location that is inaccessible to children. And finally, keys. The key to the gun lock should be stored in a separate location from the firearm. So the main focus of the law is to keep firearms under lock and key and basically separate from ammunition. So what is it that we want for our kids? We all want the same thing. We want our kids to grow up happy and healthy. And when we put our kids on a school bus or drop them off at the mall, we expect that they're going to come home to us. We also have the right to make responsible decisions about how to protect our families, our homes, and communities. And that includes whether or not to have a gun in our home. But if we can prevent even one childhood death or injury, it's our responsibility to do so. So it is always an adult's responsibility to keep guns away from children. Kids are inquisitive by nature, so keeping firearms securely stored is the best way to keep kids safe from unintentional tragedies. So let's look at some statistics. Starting in 2019, firearms surpassed traffic accidents as the leading cause of death for children under the age of 18. We lose a little over 2,500 children a year. And the thing is that this is a number that we can all work to reduce. So how do the overall stats break down? The Surgeon General has declared this a public health crisis. On average, 6 children are killed every day, and 60% of these deaths are homicides. Additionally, 700 children die by firearm suicide, and another 100 or more are unintentionally shot and killed. So a few years back, my youngest daughter wanted to go to Japan, and being a pretty nervous mom, I did some research on how safe the country was, and I looked up gun violence. And in the year that she went to Japan, there were 6 people that lost their lives to gun violence. As an American, that sounds astonishing. And I think many of us think that this is the way it has to be, when in actuality, this is uniquely an American problem. Most Western industrialized countries do not see this level of gun violence. So again, this is something that we can change. Incidents of gunfire on school grounds, up to 76% of shooters under the age of 18 obtained the guns they used from their home or the home of relatives and friends. So the statistics come from the Secret Service, and they've confirmed that 3/4 of school shooters did in fact acquire their firearms from someone they knew in the family. This is another reason why secure storage in our homes is so important. Not having access is the key to reducing gun violence. So let's talk about BeSMART. What can we do to reduce gun violence in our families and our communities? So we promote the BeSMART program through its acronyms. So S is to secure all guns in your home and vehicle. M is to model responsible behavior. A is to ask about unsecured guns in other homes. R is to recognize the role of guns in suicide. And T is to tell your peers to be smart. So let's start with S. Secure guns in homes and vehicles. So we have about 13 million households with children that contain at least one gun. And one study found that the majority of children in gun-owning households knew where the gun was stored. Store guns locked up and inaccessible to kids. Hiding a gun is not securing a guns. So we have studies that tell us that the majority of children in gun-owning households actually know where the family gun is stored. So if you have a loaded gun in your desk drawer, in a nightstand, wrapped in a towel, hidden in the basement or the garage, that is not the same as securing a gun. The only way to secure your firearm is through a lock or a safe method. So we know that people may have specific questions about what secure storage actually looks like in practice. So here are a couple of examples. And people own guns for many different reasons, which could affect the type of secure storage that they choose. I inherited 2 guns from older family members, and I use a cable lock since I do not have any minors living in my home. And if you go on Amazon, they actually have some really good options. If someone owns a gun for protection, there are affordable options that provide owners with access to guns in a matter of seconds, while still preventing access by children and people at increased risk of harming themselves or others. And some of these safes are bedside as well as vehicle mounting. Locking up guns will also help to reduce the risk of firearm suicide, unintentional firearm injury, and help to prevent firearm theft. So we have 4.6 million children in the US that live in a household with at least one loaded and unlocked gun. While school and mass shootings make national headlines, almost all child unintentional shooting deaths occur in the home. So I know we're looking at a lot of statistics, but there's a reason that I included this particular slide. It really gives an idea of how many children in the country are exposed to loaded guns in their homes across the country. So next is M, modeling responsible behavior. It is always an adult's responsibility to prevent unauthorized access to guns, not a curious child's responsibility to avoid guns. Make it part of your normal conversation when with your children. Keep the language simple. For example, if you see a gun, don't touch it, tell an adult right away. So not only do kids know where their parents store their guns, but more than 1/3 reported handling their parents' guns, many doing so without their knowledge, playing with the gun, and then putting it back where they found it. Oops, sorry. Another study found that young children who take a week-long gun safety class are just as likely as children with no training to approach or play with a handgun when they find one. So look, we can't control the environment that our children are in all the time, but we can teach them not to touch a gun if they come across one and give them the tools to get out of a dangerous situation and to alert an adult. And like all the rules we give our kids, it has to be repeated more than once. How many times do you tell your kids about the internet or not to get into a car with a stranger? How many times do you adjust the rules to be age appropriate? And we should be including gun safety in this conversation. The next is A, ask about unsecured guns in other people's homes. So make it part of your general safety conversation that you're having when you send your children to somebody else's home. So it's not unusual when you drop your kids off at someone else's house to share information that you want that family to know. Like your kid has an allergy to certain foods, they don't like pets, I see you have a pool, my kid's not a great swimmer. And we may have rules about how homework gets done or screen time that we want these families to be aware of. And we do this to keep our kids safe while they're away from us. The BeSMART program wants to suggest that when dropping our kids off at someone else's house, that we ask about secure storage. We should include our own family members in this conversation. Many of us are lucky enough to have grandparents, aunts, or uncles, or even neighbors that help out, but you may not know exactly if and how these family members store their own firearms. So let's face it, this is a really tough conversation to have, right? So you want to maybe make it a little bit less awkward. You might want to text somebody first or email them, asking them about their own secure storage. If you own a gun, you might share how you store your firearm to open up the conversation. And if you don't feel comfortable with the answer that you get from this other family, you might want to move the play date to your house or a local park, because hiding a gun is not securing a gun. So if somebody says, oh, my kids don't know where my guns are, that's not really the answer you're looking for. R, recognize the role of guns in suicide. So most people who attempt suicide do not die unless they use a gun. And 90% of suicide attempts with a gun result in death, a much higher fatality rate than any other means of self-harm. This contributes to the fact that 41% of child suicides involve a gun. So as children get older, you may need to consider taking another look at your storage methods. If you've been using a simple cable lock, you may want to think about using a gun safe. We all know how curious children can be, and as they get older, they get much more resourceful, and we need to act accordingly. A national youth survey conducted by the CDC shows 20% of high school students had seriously considered attempting suicide within the last year. And one study showed that 41% of adolescents in gun-owning households report having easy access to the guns in their home. So raising a kid is really tough today, especially teenagers. And you may have a kid that is struggling and going through a rough patch. And while the family is dealing with what might be a transitional period, you don't want to have to worry about that a fatality could happen. As discussed earlier, research shows that securing firearms is also associated with a decreased risk of child firearm suicide. So here are some resources. So there are national organizations like 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, the Trevor Project, but we also have some local organizations, NAMI of Rockland County and Suicide Prevention of Rockland County. So some of the signs to look out for when you're concerned about a loved one is change in mood and behavior, sleeping too much or too little, withdrawing, self-isolating, aggression or agitation, an increase of alcohol or drug use, and even talking about killing themselves. T, tell everyone you know to be smart. So sharing this information could really help save someone's life. Your voice is critical. So discuss with family members and friends. You know, you're standing online at a soccer game or a baseball game, you're out to brunch with friends. Tell people that you saw this presentation and share some of the information. You can also text SMART to 64433 to learn more. And I can provide my email at the end of this presentation. So if you know of an organization you would like me to present to, I would love to do that. Or you could even join BeSMART, because we're always looking for new volunteers. So I always like to end on a positive note because this is a tough topic. So what are some of our successes in Rockland County? Rockland County has adopted a law mandating businesses selling firearms to post warning labels about potential dangers of owning a gun and owning a firearm. So these warning labels are at point of purchase for guns or gun permits. And this is a new mandate that was just passed at the end of the summer. The Clarkstown School District passed the Secure Storage of Notification Act. This means that parents in this district will receive information on secure storage of firearms. I believe the final letter is being drafted. This is where the rubber meets the road because getting information to parents is key to secure storage. And BeSMART also partners with the Center for Safety and Change to promote secure storage message within Rockland County. So for people who aren't aware, the Center for Safety and Change is the organization that fights domestic violence in the county, and firearms contribute significantly to domestic violence in the US. So we table with them to share our message of secure storage as well. So thank you very much, Sandra. I appreciate everybody coming on such a beautiful day. So for more information, please feel free to email me. And thank you very much.
No, thank you, Nancy, not only for providing information to us today, but it's, you know, the fact that you do this and that you decided to work to make a change in our community and that you're making that change. That's very noble of you. And, you know, I applaud you for that. So thank you for sharing that with us. And at this moment, I would like to ask all of our attendees, if you like to ask any questions, please, this is the time, because we're not going to have Nancy for much longer here. In the meantime, I have a question for you, Nancy. We can all be agents of change, right? And we can all help in this battle. You're not the only one. So what do you see your target population be to help disseminate this information?
So I think parents are a good group of people that should get this information. Pediatricians, because they are in contact with kids, people who work with teenagers, youth organizations, you know, synagogues, churches, people that have youth programs. Because if we can get the information out, then people can make their own decisions about how to secure their own firearms.
Okay. And there's something that I was thinking of during your presentation is nowadays there are so many toys, like gun toys, that look exactly like the real ones.
Right.
So if we allow our children to play with those toys, right, and then they find the real one, how can they differentiate between, okay, but I can play with this, but I cannot play with that, but they look exactly the same, right? So how do you manage that?
So I would really say that that's a conversation that parents have to have with their kids. So, you know, if you have toy guns in the house, maybe have those children identify as toys. But if they see any gun outside of the family, they're automatically to assume that the gun is dangerous, and that parents should have an open conversation about gun safety. It's not an easy conversation, and it's a conversation that's not very typical, but we want to make it a normal part of the conversation. So if a kid sees a gun, they should automatically go to an adult to get direction.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good idea, right? You never know if it's fake or real. So if you see a gun, always bring it there and ask first if you can play with it or not. Right. Now, you were talking about different ways of keeping guns safe. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, how do we keep guns safe?
So people use guns for lots of different reasons: hunting, you know, target shooting, protection. And so there are gun safes that really pertain to individual needs of the gun owner. So I am not an expert. I do have 2 guns that I have under cable lock. Again, I said I don't have any minors living in my home. So people should do their own research, what works for them. You know, people who have guns for safety want to have quick access to them. And there are gun safes that pertain specifically to that. So people should do what makes them feel comfortable. But again, as your families change and kids grow, you may really need to reconsider the original way you were storing your gun to be more efficient for the growing family.
And I don't know anything about guns, but I just think that depending on the type of gun, you also need to have different safety measures. Like some might be small, some might be very long, and
right,
I'm not sure.
Right. I mean, you can have a gun safe that stores rifles. I have a family member who is a sheriff and he has rifles in the garage under lock and key versus a small handgun. That would be a different kind of a safe.
Okay. Well, thank you again so much. I don't see any questions coming here. So I think that's it. So how did you feel, Nancy? Was this okay?
Very nice. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, well, I just invite everyone attending here, first of all, if you have guns, please keep them safe and away of children, and have, as Nancy said, let's keep this conversation normal among children so that they know what they need to do if they see a gun. And let's spread the voice about this. Talk to your pediatricians, talk to other parents. If you are a parent of school-age children, I'm sure that Nancy would love to come to your PTA meetings, talk in your schools. You know what? We don't want to see those tragedies that we see all the time, that are very sad. But look, something good always comes out of a tragedy, right? And we got you to actually do this in Rockland County. So that might have been the positive side, although it's hard to say, right? But
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and to all of our attendees. I hope to see you next week. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.